To be there, to be on the pitch, to hear that final whistle and to see the mass of red and white sprinting onto the pitch, it was exhilarating, and as I say, memories that you'll never forget.
It's just a blur, the match itself is just a blur, and it's just really, when the final whistle goes, it's that feeling, emotion of relief that we'd got over the line, that we had won.
Men crying and all sorts of things there, it was just unbelievable. Just something you'll never forget. It brought a whole new outlook in your life, you know, with Gaelic football and everything, you know.
The 03 final today, 20 years ago, is the ultimate high point, and in his life, but also in our memories of him. And after that is the come down.
Knowing that you're going to get the opportunity to climb the steps of the Hogan stand, knowing that you're going to get to hold the Sam Maguire, that's something else. So you don't, 20 years on, you don't forget that.
On the afternoon of Sunday, September the 28th, 2003, Tyrone made history by capturing the Sam Maguire Cup for the very first time. It was a marvellous occasion, and one that all those who were there will have remembered forever. As thousands of fans flooded onto the Croke Park pitch, they watched in awe as Peter Canavan lifted the famous cup and delivered a speech for the ages. Before 2003, Tyrone's championship odyssey was probably one of glorious failure. Who can forget the All-Ireland final of 1986, when they went 8 points ahead against Kerry before being pegged back and eventually losing. Then there was 1995 and the controversy over Sean McLaughlin's equalising point. Older supporters will have remembered each of those defeats, as they longed for the day when Tyrone would win that first ever Sam Maguire Cup. No wonder then that for people like Gerard McGlynn, 2003 was such a special year.
After the disappointment of 86 and 95, it was so good, you know, to be back and won. And especially with the Nahi Ironman being the sponsor of the county that year, that was the big thing. And even in 86 and 95, to get a trip to Dublin to play at Croke Park, you know, you never would have expected it from where we were at that stage. So then to come on and eventually lift Sam, it's just brought a whole new life to the whole county.
Tyrone entered the 2003 championship in buoyant form. After winning the National League for the second year running, there was an air of confidence that finally, this year, 2003, might be the one in which the great breakthrough actually took place. Tyrone eventually reached the Ulster final in Clonus. Down would provide the opposition, but things didn't go exactly to plan. The Mourne men hit 4 goals, went 9 points ahead before Tyrone finally got their act together. Within minutes they were back on track, they earned a draw and in the replay won comfortably. A big win over Fermanagh in the All-Ireland quarter-final set up a marvellous clash against the Kingdom of Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final. That was to be a seminal meeting, and it's one which Peter Canavan and Kevin Hughes remember well.
It was massive to go down there and take on Kerry. The amount of players that they had, we were very much well aware of their calibre, and we were very much well aware that if you let them play ball, they were capable of wiping you out, and hence, you know, Tyrone played the way they did, and the intensity and the way the Tyrone players went about their business that day was just brilliant. And when you watch it back again, not just, I think it's wrong, and a lot of people just highlight maybe that few seconds of tackling and intensity, but there was some brilliant football in the first 20 minutes of that game. Tyrone blew Kerry away with their football, all out attack and the quality of scores, and we could have had 2 or 3 goals easily in the first half, but it was that, coupled with that manic intensity, that got us over the line. And again, for us, it was getting the monkey off the back. It was doing something that had never been done before. We hadn't been accustomed to beating Kerry too often. accustomed to winning too many big games in Croke Park, and likewise, we got to the final, and it was imperative that we get over the line there too.
I think probably for the rest of the country, and even maybe the rest of Ulster, they realised that Tyrone had arrived as such. Tyrone had been the newly men for a couple of decades before that, and I think that game, because it was Kerry, and we seen what Kerry went on to do the rest of that decade with winning All Irelands, and what they'd done previous in the final the year before, they'd won it in 2000, so Kerry was always there. So I think it was probably people took that as a good benchmark for ourselves, and with that scene under the Hogan stand, that was just probably a culmination from 1997 when Mickey had us as young lads. It was about being workers all over the field. It wasn't about a defensive strategy or anything like that. It was being the case. Mickey used to always say this, our first line of defence was the full forward line. So we had always had instilled in us for about 5 or 6 years at that stage, that when you don't have the ball, you're looking around to see where you can be, how can you be helpful for your teammates, put in that extra tackle, do them extra hard yards, and I think that all just come together, and Kerry were at the receiving end that day.
The 7-point win over Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final put Tyrone into the final for the first time since 1995. That 8-year gap meant that there was a frantic search for tickets in the 5 weeks between the semi-final victory and the final. For the players, though, the concentration was fully on the match. Peter Canavan, who got injured in that All-Ireland semi-final against the Kingdom, had to recover from a serious foot injury. For McAnallen, who had been introduced at full-back in the replay at Ulster final, the focus, according to his brother Donál, was firmly on preparations for that decider. For them, living close to the Armagh border, the decider had a special significance.
My memories of that summer in relation to Cormac are how he had to readjust to playing full-back for the Ulster final replay, which, for all he knew, might have just been one-off, but then ended up this was his role, so he was learning on the job. And I mean, I distinctly remember the amount of training that he did on the lawn, which had been short sprints from, like almost like a triangle or whatever, to try and get that burst of pace to play fullback, just that wouldn't have been required to the same extent when he was playing midfield. And I remember him doing that a lot on the lawn that summer, but he had the summer off as a teacher, but the grim reality of it was that just around the time after the beaten Kerry, straight back to school, and as many teacher knows, like that's a very busy time. You're trying to set down the standards for the year, and Cormac had taken on new subjects and more responsibilities. So he was teaching an A-level class for the first time in politics, and he hadn't done that before, and so he had to quickly get up to speed with that.
We were inquiring of everybody all over the country, and my brother down in Laois and my nephew in Dublin, and all, just every contact you knew. You had your name in for a ticket, and the tickets come to the pub as well. But we were lucky that we got the lower Cusick from myself and Sinead, and I never saw anybody getting us on the pitch as quick when the final was over.
It was a great Armagh team, and spells in the final they actually played very well, and some of the scores that Stevie McDonald got that day were top class. They were also a very physical side. They had a serious presence about them in the middle third of the pitch, and whatever ball was won full stop around that middle sector, it had to be earned. And again, you don't realise it at the time, but when you watch it back, it was a different style of football that's being played now. There was more energy, it was more up and down the pitch. And the time on the ball, regardless of where you won the ball, be it the full back line or the full forward line, the time on the ball, space on the ball was very limited. The tackling was crisp, to say the least, from both sides. And it was a very physical game. There was a few big clashes, a few big hits went in. And, as I say, we managed to come out the right side of it.
When you're watching a member of your family playing on a big stage like that, you never fully take your eyes off them. Even if the ball's at the other end of the field, you still have an eye on them. I think as the game wore on, you know, Cormac himself probably could feel more comfortable, and you know, he probably wasn't under threat for a large part of the game. And I suppose he did quite well, given that McDonald was the top scorer in the country that year, up to that point. And you were still nervous for him because, you know, it was only his 4th game at full back.
There was a real nail-biting atmosphere at Croke Park on that Sunday, September the 28th in 2003. Here we were watching Tyrone against Armagh, traditional rivals now bidding for the Sam Maguire Cup, the biggest prize in Gaelic football. No wonder then that the game was close and evenly contested, with many key moments.
Well, Armagh fans are pointed at sending off at Jim Marsden. I, for one, I think a lot of Tyrone fans would feel that Tyrone were still going to win. Now, the caveat to that is, of course, McDonald's big chance at the end, and that could have gone very sour for Cormac had only for Conor Gormley putting in the block.
The main thing in that was the block by Conor Gormley. Like that was a turning point. That really won the game for us, because if Armagh would have got a goal that time, it could have been squeaky bum time.
Stevie O'Neill's introduction, you know, for us was massive. You know, I've said before, there's a massive gamble from Mickey's point of view to start me, because if we had lost, you know, the argument would have been why did you not play Stevie O'Neill when he's fully fit compared to somebody that's playing on one leg? So we got to witness, you know, how strong he was going forward, and he hurt Armagh in the second half. That was massive. But yes, absolutely, our defending all over the pitch, you know, our forwards, our work rate and tenacity, similar to Kerry, was brilliant. But the turning point absolutely was Conor's block, because if Armagh had got a goal at that stage, I'm not too sure how Tyrone would have responded. To be honest, they would have had their tails up. They would have been in a very commanding position at that stage.
Late in the game, Tyrone were leading by 3 points when Stephen McDonald of Armagh raced through. Up stepped Conor Gormley to pull off one of the greatest blocks ever in an All-Ireland final. Moments later, the final whistle sounded. As thousands went onto the pitch, the players themselves realised the full enormity of what they had achieved. For them especially, this was a memorable moment.
Probably the main memory is round after the final whistle. And then I suppose when you see back then the pitch invasions were going, and you see the crowds just pour onto the field from the stands, the euphoria and the joy in their faces. It's just a blur. The match itself is just a blur, and it's just really, when the final whistle goes, it's that feeling, emotion of relief that we'd got over the line, that we had won.
There was a good friend of mine, Paul Hughes. He since departed, was one of the first men that had sprinted onto the pitch. Himself and Snooch Harper from Castlederrick, that hoisted me onto their shoulders. And look, there was a lot of faces at the time that you recognised, a lot of faces that you didn't.
But then I suppose the first person I can sort of vividly remember is Brian McGlynn, when we were making our way over to the home cup side to get on the steps, and me and him seeing each other and embracing each other, and we were actually standing on top of the hoarding, hugging each other and just looking around us, and we sort of, I suppose, had an elevated look of the pitch, and that would be the first man I remember seeing, and just looking out onto the pitch and the sea of red and white pouring out of the stands was really something.
It was a fantastic feeling. It was something that myself and Chris Lawn, a few of the older boys, had been waiting a long time for. There were occasions and times you felt that wasn't going to happen.
My predominant memory after the game is that I was sitting in the front row, lower Hughes I think it was, and I knew that as soon as the final whistle went, I was going straight over the hoarding onto the pitch as you could then, and I pretty much got to him first, although he didn't see me because a couple of the players were more in his eye line, and then he did see me and shouted my name. We're carried along with the crowd, but then get separated. But I did something that day I wouldn't ordinarily have done. I would never do. I've never done before or after. But because somebody had said to me, if Tyrone win, I can get into the dressing room, and I rang them, and fair play to him, Sean Van Branach, he got me in, and I wouldn't normally, I wouldn't normally invade such privileged quarters, but I don't know, it just felt like it was such an historic occasion that really wanted to be part of. So I was in the dressing room, and that's when I got a photograph taken. Of course, probably the best photograph I have with him when he's holding the Sam Maguire, and it's just one of those ones that came out really well. And I'm really glad that I did that day, even though I still wondered myself, what was I doing in there? Like, I shouldn't have been there, but I'm glad that I did.
It was great for us to see it, to be there, and especially as you said, that older girls hadn't got that chance. But afterwards, I remember I was up at Qunn's pub, standing outside jiving with fellow Millie Begley to a song that Sam McGlynn wrote, another Iron Man, Peter and the Sam, and it was recorded by Frankie Devine, another Iron Man. And with that song going full blast and standing jiving on the footpath with Philomena, it was crazy.
This All-Ireland triumph was the one that Tyrone people for generations had longed for. Now they were Sam Maguire Cup holders for the very first time. 20 years on, the legacy of that famous success still lives. Titles followed again in 2005 and 2008, and in 2021, under the management of Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher, Tyrone won the Sam Maguire for a fourth time. But that's not the only thing. Throughout those 20 years, Tyrone have been dining at the top table of Gaelic football achievement. They're now a team respected and feared throughout Ireland, and remain formidable All-Ireland contenders. Over the past 20 years, many of those who were there in Croke Park or watching on TV around the world are no longer with us. Cormac McAnallen, the seminal fullback from that memorable day, died in March 2004. His legacy is one which his brother Donál cherishes.
Although a lot of people might instinctively say, where did the 20 years go to? This is really 20 years. In our case, because we're celebrating an anniversary or remembering an anniversary every year, you do keep that tally. And Cormac was 19 years dead in March, and inevitably people were thinking it's going to be 20 soon. And with the passage of time, those closely linked dates of the 03 final and his death, they actually merge closer in the distant horizon. And so I suppose the 03 final today, 20 years ago, is the ultimate high point, and in his life, but also in our memories of him. And after that is the come down, and but it's great to have those positive memories that he squeezed so much in. He was only 23 then, and he did get a lot done in a short period of time, and he got that ultimate goal that he had been aiming for. It's strange, that day was the defining day of his life, really. And I suppose if Tyrone had not won the All-Ireland in 03, if something had gone wrong, he would be, maybe he wouldn't be as much remembered. The old sort of memory and legacy and fame and all those things can be quite fickle. But for him and for all the players in the 03 team, being the first winners from Tyrone was such a milestone to achieve.
We sort of arrived in 03, and I would like to think, bar a few seasons here and there, we've been pretty much there ever since, at the top table as they talk about. We've been consistently playing Division 1 football. We obviously won 3 All-Irelands since, and numerous Ulster titles. So I think the legacy is that kick-started 2 generations probably since then now, to want to progress and to emulate the team of 03.
It gave a lot of young people more interest in the Gaelic game as well, and to see the young people going about with jerseys and all that sort of thing on, it just brought a whole new outlook on the Gaelic game. That was the one once we got over the hurdle the first time, we were, and as they say, at the top table then for the number of years ahead.
Well, we won 3 in the space of 5 years, and if 2003 was at times a nervous performance in the final, it's because we didn't know how to win back then. That was the first time we'd done it, and I think the 2005 performance was laced with confidence, and there was a higher skill level probably to the performance at so many aspects of our game, and there was confidence there that no matter what Kerry would fire at us, we had more going forward, and it was one of the better finals. But that comes with winning an All-Ireland title, and the same in 2008. And Tyrone went out fully expecting to win, and that wasn't the case prior to that. So you got a feeling of what it was like for other counties, and why they kept winning and why they kept coming back. So from a Tyrone point of view, and there were so many minor teams and underage teams that went out and were performing well in Croke Park as well. So it lifted the whole county, not just the senior team. And I suppose now you're frustrated that you're not up there more often. But that's a story for another day.